Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Lundahl, and this is the Mountaineers Books web series, Episode 6. This evening, our presenter is Jeremy Benson, the author of Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes, California, and the author of Mountain Bike Tahoe. Our web series presentations are offered almost monthly, and the next month's event is on February 15th, featuring Bill Thorness, author of Cycling the Pacific Coast, the complete guide from Canada to Mexico. If a presentation lands on a day that you can't attend, feel free to register anyway because we will email you a recording of the presentation that you can watch at any time it's convenient for you. So, Jeremy Benson is a pro skier and backcountry expert and author of 2 books. He is Tahoe-based, and his insider intel is sure to get you ready to find new powder lines from Mount Shasta to Mount Whitney. His new guide is written with intermediate to advanced skiers and snowboarders in mind, detailing the best slopes the Sierra has to offer. For tonight's presentation, we're partnering with Tahoe Backcountry Alliance, and if you joined us this evening through an invitation from them, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you. Jeremy's presentation will run about 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A period. Feel free to submit questions at any time during the presentation. There's a question box that you can see on the right hand of your screen. So let's get started. Welcome, Jeremy. I'm handing the presentation over to you.
All right, thank you, Erica. As she mentioned, I am the author of Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes, California. Oh no. And I just touched the wrong button. Sorry, Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes, California. I live currently in Truckee, California. I've been in Tahoe for the last 16 years. And this season, we're off to a little bit of a slow start. It's been slim pickings in the backcountry throughout California this year. Fortunately, last night it snowed 12 to 14 inches, and today I went out with a good friend of mine, and this photograph was taken while we were out doing a little backcountry skiing on the west shore of Lake Tahoe. As you can see, pretty good powder snow. Definitely a little sharky out there for sure, but yeah, definitely a refreshing taste of winter. Nice to get out and stretch the legs and breathe some cold air and watch it snow. So yeah, happy to see a little snow today and a little more in the forecast tonight, and hopefully the skiing will be good for the rest of the season around here. As was mentioned, I'm the author of Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes, California, and also Mountain Bike Tahoe. The ski book came out just a few months ago in October, and the mountain bike book was published earlier last year in April. So skiing and mountain biking are obviously a couple sports that I really enjoy, and I'm really fortunate because those are really kind of the 2 things that I'm most passionate about, and sort of prioritized athletics and fun in my life, and happy to be able to take my experience on both the mountain bike trails and backcountry skiing, and put those into books to share that knowledge and experience with other people, and hopefully they can get out and enjoy the mountains in similar ways that I've been able to. So I've used guidebooks a lot in my life. They've helped me explore and see new places and discover things. So when I was given the opportunity, I felt really privileged and honored to give back in that similar kind of way. So as I mentioned, I'm a passionate skier. I've been really fortunate to have been a sponsored athlete for the last 15 or so years. And for me, it's really helped facilitate this lifestyle. Skiing is an expensive sport, obviously, and any help you get, whether it's skis or outerwear, backpacks or ski passes, things of that nature, really kind of help take the edge off of the expense, and have allowed me to do it more often and spend more time in the mountains than I might otherwise have been able to. And it's also given me the opportunity to work with a lot of really talented photographers. Photos like these working with professional photographers has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed kind of the process of doing that and capturing beautiful images of powder skiing and jumping off cliffs and things like that. And it's also given me the opportunity to travel a fair amount. I've skied in a lot of really exotic places, a lot of foreign countries, and throughout, the United States, up into Canada and all around. So it's been, I feel really blessed to have had the opportunity to live this lifestyle, and it's been a lot of fun. Again, just working with photographers and catching images like these are really kind of, it's been a great experience. And the one on the right here was run in a magazine a few years back. So I'm also a hugely passionate and obsessive mountain biker. When I'm not skiing, I'm generally mountain biking. And this photo was actually taken about a week and a half ago. Headed down to Sedona, Arizona to check out some new terrain and enjoy the nice warm weather while we were kind of waiting for the snowpack to build up here a little bit in the Sierra. And mountain biking is another sport that I've really tried really hard to excel at, and I've been fortunate again to work with photographers as a mountain biker. And recently, I've kind of taken up mountain biking racing again, and I'm sort of completely hooked on that. I'm definitely a very competitive person, and it's been a lot of fun just going out there trying as hard as I can and kind of try to stay fit year round. I bike to stay fit for skiing, and I ski to stay fit for biking. So it's kind of a year round process. It's a lot of fun. So there's a little flow chart that I drew, a very high tech flow chart that I drew of kind of how I came to be out here in Lake Tahoe. I grew up in Connecticut. Spent most of my childhood and went to high school and things like that in Connecticut. Learned to ski when I was 6 years old. Got really into skiing in my high school years. And when it came time to go to high school, I moved north, when it came time to go to college, I ended up going to St. Michael's College just outside of Burlington, Vermont. So I did about 5 hours north of where I grew up in Connecticut, and really got hooked on skiing even more. It kind of sort of took over a little bit while I was in college. I was able to ski about 5 days a week as a full-time student, and I just couldn't get enough of it. So when I got out of college, some friends were moving out west, and we all kind of caravaned together and made the very long drive from New England all the way out to Lake Tahoe, California, which is where I've been since 2001. And as many of you probably know, Lake Tahoe is just a gorgeous alpine lake. Straddles the Nevada-California state line in the northern Sierra. The lake's at about 6,200 feet, and it's completely surrounded in mountains. So not only is it stunningly beautiful, but there's also a wealth of backcountry ski terrain. And when I moved out here in 2001, I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, and started backcountry skiing that year, and kind of been doing it more and more ever since. So for the last 16 years or so, just kind of exploring and seeing new places and learning, different routes and places to ski. And it's been a really fun adventure for me. And there's a number of reasons that I love backcountry skiing. First and foremost is fresh snow. On the picture on the left here, just skiing fresh powder, no tracks, or skiing smooth corn. Really enjoy, the smoother the better, really. Also being out there with friends who get really excited about awesome ski runs. I mean, that's hard to beat as well. And then, backcountry skiing is, 90% uphill, honestly. You spend the most of your time walking uphill. And, for me, I've always really enjoyed the exercise of backcountry skiing and just having the opportunity to spend extended periods of time with your friends in the skin track, talking smack or whatever it might be. It's that's always been a wonderful part of it for me. And of course, there's all the amazing scenery and natural beauty that you get to see that, you know, is really something that maybe a lot of people don't get to experience. And, you know, it's something that I try not to take for granted, because, you know, every day is a new experience, and there's something just, you know, amazing to see every time. So that's always been a huge draw for me as well. And of course, there's the, you know, the feeling that backcountry skiing gives you. I mean, in my opinion, there's not too many experiences in this world that are more pure than hiking up a mountain and, you know, sliding down snow. And you know, the thrill that it gives you, just the you know, the energy, the excitement. Like sometimes you feel like you're gonna burst at the seams when you're done with a ski run. And, you know, as you can see here, my friend is just so excited after, you know, just an amazing, glorious 7,000-foot corn run on the east side last spring. And it's, you know, that's always been one of the biggest things for me, is just how fun it is. I mean, it's really hard to beat. So California, as many of you know, is a very large state. And there's a great diversity of terrain and mountains in California. In the northern part of the state is the southern end of the Cascade Range. So just south of the Oregon border is Mount Shasta, which is pictured here. This is hiking up the bottom of Avalanche Gulch. On a day we headed up to the summit and skied some wonderful snow on Mount Shasta, nice 14,000-foot peak. The other Cascade volcano in California that's most notable is Mount Lassen, which is in Lassen Volcanic National Park, just a couple hours south of Mount Shasta. Of course, where I live in the Tahoe area is generally considered to be the Northern Sierra. It's a really great diversity of terrain in this area. There's chutes and bowls and tree skiing, you know, you name it. It's all in this area. You know, a little smaller mountains compared to some of the other mountains throughout the state, but a lot of really great access and really great terrain. This picture was taken last spring, skiing Mount Tamarack. Got Emerald Bay down below, Jake's Peak in the background, and of course, beautiful Lake Tahoe. And further south in the Sierra is what we call the High Sierra. For obvious reasons, the mountains in the southern part of the Sierra Nevada are quite large. There's a, you know, huge relief from summit to valley. In some places, it's as much as 10,000 vertical feet from the summits of the mountains down to the valleys below. And of course, just a sea of mountains, as you can see sort of in the background of this photo. You know, the mountains are just seemingly endless. This photo was taken at the summit of Split Mountain, dropping in at about 14,000 feet last March as well. So a lot of different mountains, a lot of exploring to do. And, you know, that's been one of the joys for me with this project, is taking the time to go out and explore new places. Of course, you know, I've been backcountry skiing in California for the last 16 years, and I've certainly skied a lot of lines and routes, but at the same time, you know, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I mean, there's so much out there that you couldn't even hope to ski it all in a lifetime. So exploring, seeing new things has always been like a really big part of backcountry skiing for me. And in the process of researching for this guidebook, I ended up going and, you know, getting out of my comfort zone and seeing new places. And I'll go over a few of those for you in the next little bit here. Eureka Peak is one such place that I branched out and checked out. All of these routes that I'm going to explain to you, I explored all these in the spring of 2016. We've been coming off a few years of drought, and finally had ourselves another average winter. So we took the opportunity to go and explore some really cool places. Eureka Peak it was formerly known as Gold Mountain, and in the 1850s, gold was discovered on Eureka Peak, or in Eureka Peak, and by the end of the mining heyday up there, as many as 30 miles of tunnels had been dug into the mountain searching for gold. Now it's the site of the Plumas Eureka State Park, which is a small state park that's basically set up to go over the rich historic mining history of the area. And a lot of the ski tours, well, the primary ski tour, at least the one that I profile in my book, starts from the state park parking area, and you end up hiking through some of the historic buildings, past some gold mining displays, old hydraulic mining cannon. You end up hiking past a stamp mill, as well as a number of old mine shafts and things when you're hiking up through there. And this was also the site of some of the first recreational skiing in the entire country. Rumor has it that in the 1860s, the miners started skiing for fun, just to kill time in the winter on the slopes of Eureka Peak, down lower, kind of out of sight in this frame. Off to the right here, there's an old ski bowl. And they have, currently they hold these commemorative longboard races to sort of celebrate that skiing history. It's really kind of interesting. The skis are, 15 feet long, and it's a sight to behold. But Eureka Peak is about an hour north of Truckee, where I live, in a part of the Northern Sierra that people refer to as the Lost Sierra. So it's pretty easy access for me. Doesn't take long to get up there. It does take a good snow year, however. The top of this mountain is around 7,200 feet, and the base of these large south-facing slopes is around 5,000 feet. So we definitely need a little lower snow line than we often get around here. But when this mountain is in condition, it's a really fine ski objective. Typically, your tour starts down at the state park, meanders up through the trees, and then up this big broad ridge through the forest and up to the peak here on top of the huge south-facing slopes. And from that summit, this is the view looking straight down, kind of the main south-facing gully, looking down the barrel of a 2,000-foot corn run down to Jameson Creek down here at the bottom. Really excellent terrain, definitely off the radar, but a wonderful place to go and check out. And as you can see, if you can see the skier in the frame here, it's just a little fly on the wall. This is definitely some very large terrain. But another great thing about going and exploring this spot was getting up on this mountain and looking at the neighboring mountains and realizing that Mount Washington here in the background has a amazing 2,000-foot north-facing gully, and that Mount Elwell just beyond has incredible north-facing terrain, and just the, seeing new places and adding new lines to ski to the list was really pretty eye-opening. And since my first trip up there, I've been up there a few more times to ski, and it's definitely a really cool spot that I'm really glad I got a chance to check out. Later that same spring of 2016, I headed down to down US 395 from Tahoe to Big Pine, California, probably about 4 hours from LA. But Big Pine Creek is the main drainage that comes out of the Sierra down towards the town of Big Pine. And in that area is some of the largest and most dramatic peaks in the entire range. Headed down there with a friend on a mission to ski some corn snow. At the time, the snow cycle was leaning towards some solar aspects, but we headed up to a mountain called Slide Mountain, which is in between the north and south forks of Big Pine Creek. And this photo was taken on that day, skiing on Slide Mountain. But the entire time we were out there, we were staring down this steep and beautiful aesthetic couloir in the background that is on Norman Clyde Peak. And pretty much from that moment, the first time I ever saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to get back down there. So a couple weeks later, the opportunity presented itself to head back down. Snow conditions were a little more favorable to be on north-facing slopes. And we headed down to go check out this couloir on Norman Clyde Peak. It's just a beautiful, aesthetic, north-facing, steep line, and on a peak that's named for Norman Clyde, who's one of the original kind of Sierra mountain explorers, to really branch out and climb these huge and beautiful mountains. So definitely the mountain is a fitting tribute to him, kind of the pioneer of this area. So we headed down to Big Pine, ended up at the trailhead, which, as is somewhat typical in the Eastern Sierra in the springtime, you're starting on dirt and hiking up a trail until you reach the snow line. And we're very fortunate actually to have a lot of great trail access for that reason. So even in times where you don't have the best snow coverage, you can often use a trail to go access the snow a little higher up. As you can see, my friend Allie here staring at the trailhead marker, and then on the right here, a few hours later, she's hiking up towards the moraines, which are below the Norman Clyde Glacier. You can just see a little bit of exposed ice there, and then up to that steep couloir. A few hours later, we find ourselves climbing the ladder. We'd skinned up to basically the Bergschrund at the base of this couloir, and then switched over to boot packing and just kicking steps up to the top of the chute. I'm at the top of the chute here where I'm taking this photograph looking down on my friends. You can see the large kind of valley we hiked up, and then the trailhead is kind of way off in the distance out here. So definitely a big effort to get out there. I think it's about 7 miles each way and a little over 6,000 vertical feet. And of course, you top out on this couloir and you look over the other side of the mountain, and there you have, again, like an entire piece of the range that you've never even seen before, at least from this angle. And, next thing you know, you're scheming up ways to get out there and head through this area and ski some of these cool lines that, heck, I didn't even know some of these existed before. So, just like every experience in the mountains, you kind of see new things and you get to add, future descents to your list. But of course, this day we came to ski the couloir, and we were really fortunate on this day to have great snow conditions. It had snowed a few days prior, so we were skiing relatively soft powder snow down the couloir, and then down this enormous apron of the glacier. So from where this photo is taken to the top of the chute, about 2,500 vertical feet, uninterrupted, great fall line, absolute blast. And as you can see on my friend's face here, definitely a big old smile, because not only is it wonderful to go ski a line that you want to go and ski, but to do it in good condition and with good friends is really a treat. So definitely a wonderful ski experience, and one that I will hopefully repeat numerous times in the next several years. Shortly after that trip, I got a little bit of a wild hair and headed down to a really kind of remote part of the Sierra Nevada, difficult to access, sort of the southwestern part of the range. There's not a lot of western slope access to the mountains of the Sierra, just because of the way the range is shaped. It's sort of steep on the east side and really long and drawn out on the west side. But this is one particular area that you can have relatively easy access midwinter and in the spring. It's called the Pear Lake Ski Hut, which is located in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. The closest major city to this area is Fresno, like in the Central Valley of California. So definitely kind of off the radar for a lot of skiers who mostly, access the Tahoe area or, the eastern side of the Sierra. But a really cool spot. This is definitely, managed by the National Park Service. And in the summer, it's a backcountry ranger hut. But in the winter, it becomes a backcountry ski hut, which is, you can make reservations and head out there with a group of friends. I believe there's rustic bunks to accommodate about 8 people. Wood stove, they have all your cooking equipment already out there, so you can pack pretty light and head in there for a few days to check out the wealth of terrain that's in the immediate area. I went out there, I think it was March of 2016, and headed out just to sort of explore the zone. And this is kind of what I saw. There's just a abundance of great, like, moderate rolling ski terrain right in the immediate area of the Pear Lake Hut. Peaks around here top out around 11,500 feet or so. So definitely a little smaller than the peaks of the Eastern Sierra, but really a really remote and unique place. And you can also kind of use it as a base for longer moderate ski tours up on the Kings Kaweah Divide. It gives you the opportunity to look into some of the most remote peaks in the entire Sierra Nevada range. So really cool location. But in addition to all the moderate ski terrain in the area, definitely happened upon some pretty exciting steep skiing as well. As you can see here, photo on the left is standing at the top of this nice little steep chute, and photo on the right is standing at the bottom and looking back up. Down there at the bottom is what's called Emerald Lake, and this little couloir is named the Emerald Express Couloir because it's definitely the express route to get down to that lake. And about 500 feet in the couloir walls, and then after that, a nice open 1,000-foot run out. But really cool, like pretty spicy skiing, and so there's a little bit of something for everyone out at the Pear Lake Hut, which was cool to see that there's excellent moderate terrain, and also, if you want a little pucker factor, you can find that there as well. So, and another shot from the Pear Lake Hut. This is actually skiing across Pear Lake and heading out towards Alta Peak, which is this one up here, sort of one of the main peak objectives in the area. Fun little couloir off the top, and then a bunch of rolling, mellower terrain back down. But a really cool place to check out, somewhere I'd never been, and somewhere I'd really love to go back and spend some time with some friends, really exploring the rest of what's out there, because it's just a unique experience and something a part of the range that you don't necessarily get to see every day. And again, later that same spring, I was definitely on a roll and trying to capitalize on snowpack and good weather. Headed down to Bishop, California, which is just about a half an hour south of Mammoth Mountain and probably 4.5 hours north of LA. And ended up going for an overnight ski tour with a good friend of mine out of North Lake, which is one of two lakes that's just west of Bishop, up Bishop Creek. In the spring in the Sierra, there's the season opener, the fishing season, is referred to as Fishmas. Big celebration for all the fishermen. They finally plow a bunch of roads and provide access to a lot of the lakes and streams that have been kind of snowed in all winter. And it's a great time for fishermen, but it's also a huge benefit for skiers of the area as well, because it provides us, new access to trailheads that have been kind of snowed in and have been, otherwise unreachable for part of the season. So spring comes, we gain that new access, and we headed up to North Lake and headed back into an area known as the Goethe Cirque. And from there, we headed over to Mount Darwin. And from Mount Darwin, we headed up to Mount Lamarck and ended up making a large loop from that trailhead. In this picture here, you can actually see what's known as the Goethe Cirque. This is Mount Goethe, and this large ridge here is home to a number of really cool steep couloirs. Some great ski terrain in here. And it's about an 8-mile walk one way just to get back to this area. So we headed down, I think it was late April 2016. And the ski tour starts by heading up this massive valley up to what's called Paiute Pass, which is the low point and in the far distance in this photograph. After you crest Paiute Pass, you end up heading out onto the Humphreys Bench, which is named for Mount Humphreys, which is the mountain in the background of this photo. This is the western slope of Mount Humphreys, which is just something I'd never seen before until this ski tour. Mount Humphreys is one of the main peaks of the Bishop skyline, so there's a number of more easily accessible peaks out of the Bishop area. Mount Humphreys is one of the tallest and most recognizable, but this is looking at it from the other side, which is a really cool, unique perspective that I've never gotten before. And as we're hiking west out towards the Goethe Cirque, you can see small person, big mountains. Definitely feel really small in a hurry back here. These mountains are just enormous. Everything back here is 13,000, almost 14,000 feet. And yeah, just towering, massive, steep cliff walls. We finally made our way out to Goethe Lake. Took about 5 hours to get back there, maybe 6. We ditched our overnight gear at the bottom and ended up boot packing up one of the easier couloirs to access. Did ourselves a nice little ski. It turned out that the snow at the time on north faces was pretty messed up. There was a lot of wind effect, a lot of punchable, breakable snow. Not ideal for our situation. We had headed out there to mostly access north-facing terrain. So wasn't great skiing conditions, but it was definitely great touring conditions, and the weather was perfect. So it was a nice experience to get out there regardless. And after skiing Mount Goethe, we bumped over Alpine Col, headed further west into the range, down this valley and to the mouth of Darwin Canyon. The next day, we'd planned to access Mount Darwin, which is the peak basically in the center of the frame. And yeah, so headed down, set up a nice little camp, found ourselves a beautiful flat rock to set up the Megamid on. Spent a nice cool evening out at 11,000 feet and woke up the next day to just gorgeous, perfectly blue skies, sunny weather, and yeah, continued the ski tour. So this is looking into Darwin Canyon. Actually, my ski partner is this tiny little dot right down there. But our goal for the next day was to head up this canyon and around the bend, and Mount Darwin is sitting back behind Mount Mendel. But what really struck both of us actually was heading back here and seeing all of this amazing ski terrain that we'd never even heard of before. There's a lot of terrain that's listed in guidebooks and talked about regularly, but often faces like this are just kind of left out of the conversation. And obviously these aren't ideal conditions in snow coverage, but on a bigger winter, I'd say most of these lines would fill in pretty well and would be pretty amazing ski terrain. So it was really cool and eye-opening to get back into this area and see all these things that I'd never seen before, and just know that that's back there for future reference. And when the time is right to get back there and check it out. But we hiked past all that beautiful ski terrain with the goal of going to ski Mount Darwin, which is kind of front and center here in this photograph. We're hiking up over the moraines and heading up to the base of the north face here. And the typical ski route is up this north face and then up this little chute up to the summit here. Unfortunately, on this day, as I mentioned earlier, the snow conditions were a little less than perfect on north-facing terrain. We ended up getting up through all this pepper and rocks and up on the Darwin Glacier here, and the snow was so tricky. It was even hard to actually hike uphill through. So skiing downhill was going to be quite a challenge with the breakable crust and all of that. So we ended up actually bagging the summit on that one and turning around and heading up and out of the Darwin Canyon and up to what is called Lamarck Col. You can see here Mount Darwin on the left, Mount Mendel on the right. This is Darwin Canyon down at the bottom, and just a massive slope to hike up to reach Lamarck Col here at about 13,000 feet. And once you crest Lamarck Col, which is down kind of just out of the frame, middle lower left here, it lines you up perfectly to access the summit of Mount Lamarck, which is around, I think, 13,800 feet or something like that. So we bumped up to the summit, checked out a few things, ended up opting to take the mellowest of all the ski routes off of Mount Lamarck due to the fact that it was awesome corn snow instead of breakable crust, and finished our ski tour by skiing a large, moderate run from Lamar Cole all the way back down to the trailhead at North Lake. But, obviously, we would have preferred better conditions to tackle all of the cool ski descents in this area. But regardless, it was an amazing trip out there for 2 days and one night, about 22 miles, just checking out all these incredible mountains, and just really stoking the fire to get back there when the conditions are right, and hit all those lines when they're the way we want them to be. So just a really great experience, and another one of several amazing places that I explored during the process of doing all the research for this book. And that's sort of the beauty of backcountry skiing in California. I mean, there's so much out there that it's kind of limitless, and there's really no end to the exploration and to the discovery. So for me, it's kind of an ongoing process that I'm really happy to be to be participating in. And that's sort of the summary of the few places that I wanted to tell you all about. But for me, backcountry skiing is it's an amazing outlet, physical outlet to get out in the mountains, see amazing things, and spend time with friends. Days that start like this at sunrise in the pink light, heading out into the mountains, spending time just talking with friends, going and setting goals and reaching your objectives and skiing those lines, and then finishing the day, making it home safely, just sharing the stoke and being out there with your buddies, and cheersing at the end of the day with a couple beers. I mean, honestly, it really doesn't get any better than that for me. So I'm really happy to have been given the opportunity to share what I know in my new guidebook, and I hope that it helps other people. It's a helpful resource to get other people out there to explore and see new things, and check out the amazing mountains in the state of California. So that's about all I've got.
Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I know I just learned a ton. I can't wait to get down to California to try some of this out. We have some questions. Feel free to enter questions into the question bar if you have some questions for Jeremy. We're going to turn on your video so that we can see you. And we have a first question here from Frank, saying snow was pretty spotty this year so far in the Sierra. Where can I find reliable snow in the backcountry that doesn't take a lot of hiking to get to it?
All right, so you are correct. It is definitely spotty out here. It's hit or miss. It's been a trying early season so far. If you're in the Tahoe area, there's a handful of places that have better coverage than others. Anything off of Mount Rose, the Mount Rose Highway, has pretty good coverage. The starting elevation is a bit higher. So Tamarack Peak, Hourglass Bowl, and kind of the surrounding bowls in that area have definitely been serving up some good conditions so far this season. I live on Donner Lake, and so some of the easiest access for me is right nearby. I've been going up to Castle Peak, skiing off of Donner Summit. The north side of Castle Peak's been holding snow really well, as has the east face of Mount Judah, kind of off the backside of Sugar Bowl. And then a little further south, near Kirkwood Ski Resort, Carson Pass has definitely gotten a good amount of snow. So there's some good skiing happening over there on Red Lake Peak, out towards Round Top, and kind of those zones. So I know Mount Shasta's gotten a good amount of snow, and I believe Mount Lassen has as well. So those might be worth checking out. And then further south in the Sierra, definitely working the higher trailheads whenever possible. Skiing out of Virginia Lakes, I think, has been pretty good. Definitely, but anywhere you go currently with our current snowpack, which is floating around 30%, it's, it could be a little bit sharky, definitely thin cover. Yeah, I've definitely been hitting rocks from time to time. So you got to pick your battles and find the good snow wherever you can. But yeah, I'd recommend Mount Rose, Castle Peak, Carson Pass, some of the best options right now.
Cool. Eileen is asking, do you have a recommended tour if the base camp is Reno?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the easiest, well, one of the closest places to aspect or to access from Reno is the Mount Rose area. So, obviously head up towards the Mount Rose ski area on the Mount Rose Highway, and then one of the tours that I have listed in the book is Tamarack Peak. And that's one of actually the places that has the best snow coverage currently. So yeah, you go off the Mount Rose Highway. It's not a long hike, and there's a variety of fun bowls back there. So you can kind of link up a cool ski tour. You can go back for one lap, or you can, do several and make a day out of it. But that's probably the easiest access from Reno. Otherwise, if you were to head west on 80 up to Donner Summit, I'd suggest going up to Castle Peak. Pretty direct shot from Reno up to Donner Summit, probably 40 minutes in the car, maybe 45. And again, that's one of the spots that currently has some of the best coverage. So I'd probably recommend those two as the easiest hits from Reno in general, but also at the moment based on the current snow coverage.
Cool. Let's see. Janet is asking if I want to go on a backcountry skiing vacation, but stage out of a town and then do day tours from there. Is there any place that you'd recommend that's not overcrowded?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of places that you could do that. I would suggest Truckee is a great option. I mean, Truckee's, it's a big town, but it's not huge. There's a lot of great lodging options around here. There's good Airbnbs, things like that. And definitely a lot of ski options. Out of Truckee, there's good skiing, and then it's about 15 miles to get down to Lake Tahoe from here, where you can access the West Shore. You can also access the Mount Rose area, so that's a good option. You could definitely base out of South Lake Tahoe as well, because there's a ton of great skiing down there. But South Lake Tahoe is a little bit bigger of a town, definitely has a little different feel than North Lake Tahoe. So if you're looking for kind of a small town vibe, South Lake Tahoe might not be the ideal spot. Mammoth is definitely a great option. Mammoth Mountain is a great ski area, first of all, but from Mammoth, you can definitely access a lot of killer ski terrain along the Eastern Sierra, up towards June Lake, up towards Tioga Pass, and then further south, Convict Lake, down towards Bishop. So all that stuff's kind of within striking distance from the Mammoth area. And actually, June Lake would be a wonderful place to stay because it's a really kind of smaller, quiet town, stunningly beautiful, good skiing right nearby as well. So those are a few options that I would suggest for sure.
Brendan is asking, have you ever skied in the Palisades area, particularly the U-Notch, and what favorable conditions would you look for when planning this?
So yeah, the Palisades region, I have skied back there. The U-Notch is a very steep line. It can often have some ice in there and a bergschrund at the bottom. It's definitely great to catch it in powder if you can. Nice stable powder storm is one of the most ideal conditions. It's definitely hard to nail that and to kind of time that right. So I think it's often really great to wait until like late in the spring. You can hike back in there on the trail. There's a killer trail that goes from the Big Pine Creek trailhead up to kind of First Lake and then Third Lake and on. So you can hike in there with hiking shoes in the late spring and camp out and spend a little time and wait, and hopefully hit the corn cycle just right. And I mean, that would be pretty ideal as well. So you probably have, late spring, great camping conditions, and then, great steep, corn's a great snow condition to ski, really steep terrain, I think. It's pretty predictable. So that would be my recommendation. And then if you're overnighting back there, you could ski the U Notch, the V Notch, you could hit Thunderbolt Peak, and you could ski, like the West Couloir of Mount Sill. You'd have a lot of options and spend a couple nights and, tick off several cool lines maybe at the same time. That would be my recommendation.
On the subject of overnighting, Saul asks, if you're doing an overnight trip, how much weight do you usually pack in?
I tend to try to travel really light when I'm overnighting. So I carry a mega mid, a sleeping bag, a sleeping pad, a Jetboil, and then very simple food typically. My pack usually weighs, I would think, I tend not to weigh, I don't really weigh my pack, but I would say no more than like 45 pounds. So yeah, I like to travel light. The lighter you travel, the farther you can go.
Craig asks, there are several backcountry ski guides for California. Is there any way that your book differs from some of the others that are out?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of other guidebooks out there, and I definitely own all of them, and I reference them myself. I think mine differs from those because of its broader broader regional focus. So mine covers the state from Mount Shasta pretty much to the southern end of the Sierra Nevada, down to Mount Langley. So it really gives a really broad scope. So I think that's the main difference. A lot of the other guidebooks that are out there tend to have a more specific focus, like the Eastern Sierra, for example, or, the Tahoe region. So mine kind of covers the whole state as opposed to a smaller region.
Cool. Anna asks, how much should I worry about avalanches this time of year?
You should definitely worry about avalanches this time of year, just as much as any other time of year. I think, avalanches are always a concern, and, we're pretty fortunate where we are here in California. We have a relatively typically, and this is a very general statement, we have a typically very stable snowpack compared to a lot of other places. That being said, avalanches are definitely a very real concern here at all times. So it just depends on, the current weather, the current snowfall, what's been happening in the snowpack. They're definitely, you want to stay on top of that regardless of the time of year here in Tahoe. So definitely always keep that, as a very important factor, like in all your decision making and planning. But you got to just use all the information available to you and make the best decisions you can based on the current conditions and your observations. So
I have a question from Doug about, are there any websites or apps or resources that you use to look at ski conditions coming up?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like kind of an obsessive weather checker. I'm always checking the weather, looking at remote weather data and seeing what the ridgetop winds are, and when the next storm cycle's coming. But I look very regularly at the avalanche report because they're always posting current, recent observations from snowpack throughout, the Tahoe region. if I'm heading down to the Eastern Sierra, I'll look at the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center's website to see, the recent observations. They'll often post conditions reports and also, pit profiles, things like that. So you kind of have an idea what's going on with the snowpack. And the same up in Mount Shasta, they have an avalanche center up there. So I think avalanche centers are one of the best resources, to check in to see what's happening with the snowpack, and then also to get an idea of what the conditions are as well, because they'll often post photos and sort of weather observations and things like that. Those are kind of the resources that I use the most. I know there's other online resources out there where people are sharing, trip reports and things of that nature, but I personally don't tend to look at those too often. But honestly, social media is another good spot to look. People are just constantly posting pictures, kind of in real time too, of what the conditions are like, So that's a good way to get a handle of what's going on out there is checking out Instagram or whatever it might be, to see what people have been up to.
Sweet. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie's asking, Jamie says, my daughter is 10, but a strong skier. Is there a place that you would recommend taking kids to introduce them to backcountry skiing?
Introductory backcountry skiing for kids. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of places to take kids for sure. It sort of depends how, what type of terrain you're interested in taking them into. Because often you could go on, let's say you hike up towards Tamarack Peak off of Mount Rose Highway, for example, since I've mentioned that already numerous times. But, instead of necessarily going all the way to the top and, entering avalanche terrain, you could stay on some of the lower, more moderate slopes, that you hike through on the way up to the bowls. Might be a great option. There's some short, steeper pitches in there, and then some more casual, mellower terrain right in that immediate area. So that would be a good suggestion. Currently, with the current snowpack and things, it's a little tougher to get to some of the more moderate terrain. Some of the lower stuff, like, let's say, I would suggest too, maybe the bottom half of like the south side of Jake's right above Emerald Bay. The upper pitch is a bit steeper, but the lower part's a little more moderate and rolling. You could hike about halfway up the mountain and still get a good ski run in, and the pitch is still fun. Super beautiful, but currently that would require a bit more snow to be skiable. But there's a lot of great options for that. It just sort of depends kind of how deep into it you really want to get with your kids. So I'd just say start slow and small, and yeah, there's a lot of good options out there. And there's actually some good programs that are getting started up as well. Youth backcountry skiing programs that I'm familiar with. I know one is at Sugar Bowl Ski Resort, and it's called the Snow Rangers. It's a season-long program that's kind of an introduction to backcountry skiing for kids kind of that age. They do a little bit of Avalanche 1 sort of training, as well as route finding, using the equipment, etc. So it's a pretty interesting program, and I think there's about 55 days or 50 days of instruction throughout the season. So that'd be a cool thing to potentially look into as well.
Sweet. We just have time for one more question, and the question is from Emily. Where are you skiing next, and why?
I actually think I'll be skiing tomorrow, I believe, and I think I'm going to Sugar Bowl, the ski resort, because it's one of my wife's days off from work, and we only have so many days that we get to ski together. So hoping to go out and get a little powder skiing in up at the ski area tomorrow. But beyond that, this weekend, I'm not totally sure. We do have fresh snow here in Tahoe, so I will probably end up heading up to Castle Peak, maybe Saturday or Sunday, and then possibly down to the West Shore, maybe out to like Rubicon or Jake's. But kind of have to see what the weather does, and yeah, what the timing's like. But hopefully soon we'll have enough coverage and to head further south down towards Mammoth and ski some of the bigger mountains and really get into it. But for now, we're limited as to where we can go. Where there is coverage, the skiing's actually been really good, but those spots are kind of few and far between at the moment. So just hoping for more snow and the chance to get out and ski some more powder this season. Today was pretty good, so I can't complain.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us. And thank you to the audience for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. Jeremy's book, Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes California, is available wherever books are sold and also on our website, mountaineersbooks.org, where if you use the code POWDER, just as it sounds, all one word, you'll receive a 20% discount. Again, the discount is powder, but if you don't have a pencil, don't worry, we'll email you the code in a day or two when we send you a recording of Jeremy's presentation. And you can sign up now for our next web episode, Cycling the Pacific Coast, on February 15th, featuring cyclist Bill Thorness. All right, see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.